Welcome to Guiding Star Marshalltown in our 2020 Fall Appeal. We are broadcasting tonight from our location at 2501 South Center Street in Marshalltown, Iowa. My name is Mary Mock, Executive Director. Last year, Leah Jacobson, Fertility Care Practitioner, my husband Mark, Board Chair, and I had a vision to open a Guiding Star Center. It has become a reality with the help of our founding board members and generous donors who were also committed to our vision. We were able to remodel the space, furnish it so that anyone who comes to Guiding Star Marshalltown will have a feeling of serenity and peace, and our staff will be ready to help, no matter what the situation. Our committed board members pulled carpet, painted, installed a door, closed in a wall. And it was great to have an interior decorator on the board as Julie Miller picked out all the colors in carpet and flooring. We invite you to stop in and see our center sometime. Board members include Mark Dolash, Teresa Ingold, Leah Jacobson, Mark Mock, Julie Miller, and Jerry and Aggie Zion. Many of you watching tonight were planning to attend our gala in April, but as you know, it was canceled because of the pandemic. But tonight, we want to tell you about our purpose and our vision to provide holistic health care for women, men, and their families. We are happy you'll be joining us as we discuss why Guiding Star Marshalltown is desperately needed in Marshalltown and surrounding communities. As many of you know, currently, we have no OB/GYN physicians in Marshalltown, which has a population of approximately 28,000. Pregnant women are forced to travel to surrounding towns to deliver their babies. Two of our long-term goals are to provide ultrasound images to expectant women and partner with an OB/GYN physician to practice in Marshalltown with Guiding Star. Guiding Star Marshalltown is an affiliate and part of the national brand that is the Guiding Star Project. There are 6 other locations in the United States, and more twinkles to open are on the horizon. We have many volunteers and professional community partners that have stepped up to support Guiding Star already through their time and commitment. If anyone is interested in volunteering or partnering with us, please contact us. Anyone who comes into Guiding Star will be treated with kindness, compassion, and respect. Whether it's a 17-year-old nervous woman seeking a pregnancy test, a couple struggling with infertility, or a mom who is having breastfeeding and postpartum concerns, Guiding Star is here to help. And tonight, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Leah Jacobson, who founded the Guiding Star Project in 2011. Leah and her family reside in Minnesota. As mother to 7 children, she has a special interest in supporting young women as they transition into their roles as new mothers. After working with a variety of younger generations and mothers since 2000, Leah felt called to help women and their families by providing resources that honor and promote natural law and holistic feminism. She has sought to create Guiding Star Centers nationwide to serve as beacons of hope, joy, and truth, safe havens that uphold human dignity in all stages of life. Please welcome Leah Jacobson.
Thank you, Mary. That was really professional. That was really good. Mine's not going to be probably be quite as rehearsed as that, so bear with me tonight. I wish we had the ability to edit and such, but that's okay. The technology is what it is, and so be generous with all of us tonight that are going to be presenting. We wish that we had all of you in person with us. It would be so much easier. It would just be lovely to have you all in the room together, and so we're going to do the best we can. But just know that wherever you're at tonight, wherever you're watching this from or listening in from, that we would so prefer to have you with us. And so maybe next year we can all get together and have a really awesome event in person. That would be lovely. This is my first visit to Guiding Star Marshalltown, and I just have to say I am loving this space. The team here has done such a fantastic job putting this together. It's small, but it's mighty, and I can just tell that this is going to be a beacon in this community. It is going to be a shining, bright light that is going to infuse your entire community with a new worldview. And I'm just so impressed with the work that you've already done in getting this launched during a pandemic, nonetheless. That you were able to even do any construction in here and painting and new floors. It just feels so clean and nice. And so if you haven't stopped by this center yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. They are incredibly welcoming. Don't do it right now though, because we're filming. So come in at a different time. So Mary gave me a really generous introduction. There's not a lot more that I want to say about myself in terms of I am a wife, I am a mom, and I am the founder of Guiding Star Project, which is one of those things that I find incredibly humbling, but also almost comical, because it's not something that I ever set out to do. It's not something that I even really understood that there was a need for. I began my work actually in campus ministry, and so I worked for the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota as the campus minister at the Newman Center at the UMD. And my husband and I were very young when we got married, and we started our family pretty young. And it was as we were finishing up school and welcoming our first babies and working as campus ministers that we really had the opportunity to start working with a lot of young students and a lot of young people who were discerning their identities, they were discerning their vocations, they were really trying to figure out who God made them to be. And for me, the conversations got really interesting as I had my first baby and then I was pregnant with my second baby. And the girls would have the most interesting questions for me. The female students would find me, they'd come to my house after class sometimes and help me clean up a little bit and wanted to hold the baby, and they would just spend time with me. And they would sometimes kind of awkwardly just slip it in, like, how does, breastfeeding work? Like, I've never actually seen anybody breastfeed. And I always kind of was caught off guard a little bit, but I said, oh, absolutely, like, let's have a conversation about this. Let's talk about it. And we'd start talking more and more, and it would become clear that a lot of them had a lot of doubt about what their body was going to be able to do. They didn't trust that they would be able to breastfeed. A lot of them doubted that they'd even be able to get pregnant, or if they were able to get pregnant, they were pretty certain that they would not be able to have a natural childbirth, that they wouldn't be able to tolerate labor and delivery, that they were going to absolutely opt for a C-section because they just didn't feel like their body was going to work right. And as we talked more about it and kind of backed further up, many of them expressed not only just doubts about their bodies, but fears that they, deep down inside, subconsciously, they feared that their body was going to fail to perform at the time when it was supposed to do something. And some of the examples that they'd give to me, they'd say, well, I'd say, why do you think that? Well, my mom, she wasn't able to breastfeed, or she wasn't able to do this. And I actually had to get put on the pill when I was 14 because my cycles were really irregular and they were really painful. And the doctor just told me right then, like, you might not be able to have kids. Like, this just might not be something that's in store for you. And so a lot of these young women had already been on birth control for 4 to 5 years at the point when I was meeting them as freshmen and sophomores in college. And they had self-normalized this opinion of themselves that their body was in some way broken and that they would not be able to perform the basic functions of a female body. And that was really troubling to me. It really bothered me, as a mom working with young women on campus. And it really kind of sat in my heart, and it made me sad. It made me really sad because I was really lucky. I grew up in rural Minnesota, very, very rural Minnesota. In fact, I grew up on a dairy farm, and I was surrounded by animals my whole upbringing. Cows and horses and my siblings were all animals that I saw on a regular basis, and life was pretty natural in terms of that I could see the natural flow of life. On a very consistent basis, you could see that there is a season for planting, a season for growing, a season for harvesting, that consequences came from actions, and that life happened, and ended. And it was a very good way for me to grow up because I was very in tune with just nature and the natural order and the natural law that is really a gift to us from God the Creator. And because I had that exposure, I think, and the gift of my faith growing up, I never distrusted that my body would just do what it was supposed to do. I had never been told that I should expect it to fail. And so I think I had a real advantage. The other advantage I had is that we lived far away from any town that had any sort of cable access. And so I didn't have access to cable TV or the internet or cell phones. This was way before the age of all that. And so I didn't even watch MTV growing up. I really missed out on most of the cultural indoctrination that my classmates and my friends were experiencing. And at the time, I didn't like it. I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is so lame. I don't get to watch the movies that my friends are watching. I don't get to see the things they're watching. But as I became a young mom and I learned to trust my body and understand what my body was doing, I was incredibly grateful. Because what we're seeing all around us in our modern culture, I think all of us can probably agree that there has been an over-sexualization of women's bodies and of young girls' bodies in particular. And if anybody has been paying attention this last week, I'm not sure if you guys watching the cancel Netflix thing, well, this has been just fascinating to watch. And I'm actually very buoyed with hope because Netflix, for those of you that are unaware, had a show that they released this last week called Cuties. And I don't recommend you watch it. And I don't recommend you even go read about it because there's a lot of pictures that tend to be shared with it. But I can give you a synopsis. It's basically a show about an 11-year-old girl who is finding a new group of friends at school. And she finds this new little clique of friends called the Cuties. And this group of girls is involved in a dance troupe. And basically it's about the most sexualized, horribly sad depiction of 11-year-old girls that you will ever see. And many people rightfully claimed that this borders on pedophilia and child pornography. And the reason I'm buoyed and have hope is that in the week since it's been released, there's been over a $9 million loss of revenue to Netflix by people canceling their accounts. So I think our society and our culture has drawn a line and said 11 is too little. But let's be honest. If those girls had been 16 or 17 or 18, this show probably would just be flying under the radar without any problem. 16, 17, and 18, there's still an innocence there. There's still a beauty there that we should absolutely be protecting and trying to really instill the dignity and the beauty of these women's bodies instead of sexualizing them. So I guess what kind of came out of all of this as I realized in working with young women is that not only did they distrust their bodies, and not only did they feel a pressure for their bodies to be used in a very overtly sexual way to get what they wanted, the bottom line was that the reason they didn't distrust, or that they didn't trust it, was that they just simply did not even understand how their natural female body is supposed to work. So when I would talk with young women on college campuses, as their campus minister, and as a young mom with a baby, I'd ask things like, well, do you track your cycle? I have no idea how to do that. No idea. I said, well, do you know when you ovulate? No idea. The questions that were coming at me, basic questions about, being afraid of giving birth and how to breastfeed and how does that work. They were really fascinating questions, actually, about just how lactation works. And they were great questions, but they were a little alarming coming from 21-year-old women, because it had become such a taboo subject for them that the breasts that they were displaying prominently on campus in very sexualized shirts were somehow off limits for the most natural function and the purpose that they were created for in breastfeeding a baby. They'd never seen breasts used for breastfeeding. So, Guiding Star kind of began to brew at that point. I began to think something is really wrong with how we are raising our girls in our culture. Something is really wrong with the education that they are receiving about the purpose of their bodies and the dignity of their bodies. If they're coming, to me as a college student and not understanding anything about their basic fertility, what happened, 5-6 years ago? What were they learning 5-6 years ago? Like, what's the upstream, exposure that they're having that the downstream problem is this? And so started to look a little more closely at what was happening in the public schools in our area, and sure enough, The sex education curriculums were very good about sharing all the potential risks and all the potential really bad things that could happen because of sex, which in some ways was appropriate with the audience, but never once did it explain how sex should be treated. The beauty of this intimate act, the sacred nature of it, the potential of it to create human life, and never ever did it proclaim that that is something that should be protected, that using your body in a way that is unsafe in many ways can affect your future family planning. It can affect your future fertility, and it can be very dangerous to your health. It was never portrayed that this is something that is beautiful and worth protecting, and that it is something that in the right time, in the right situation, you're going to want to know how to care for it. So there was very little information to the young girls in their classes, the puberty classes. And I remember my puberty class. I went to a Catholic school, and I remember in 5th grade the nurse came in and had the little packs of the period stuff, and we had a quick 1-hour talk, and the boys were in the gym, and we were all so embarrassed because we were afraid the boys were going to hear what the nurse was saying, and we're all like, oh my gosh, and then the nurse left, and we all shoved the little packs in our desks because we didn't want the boys to see. It was so embarrassing. The whole thing was so mortifying and embarrassing. We didn't want anyone to know. And you sure as heck didn't tell anybody if you had already started cycling. It was just kind of this very hush-hush thing. But I'm grateful because we at least were given some information. We at least were given some preparation, which I think is more than even some girls are currently getting. So when we stop and think about the type of education our girls are receiving in the schools on their bodies, on the function of their body, and then we look 10 years down the line, and we recognize that most women can't track their cycles. They can't tell you when they ovulate. The majority of women feel a lot of fear about pregnancy and childbirth and are unsure about their options and their decisions. Many women attempt to breastfeed in our country, and they want to, but even though roughly 75 to 80% of women will attempt breastfeeding, within 6 weeks, more than half of them have quit. And the majority of them say they didn't feel like they could do it. They didn't feel confident in their abilities. They just didn't feel like it was working for them. So we definitely have a problem with how women are understanding and viewing the functions of their bodies and whether or not it's even something good. So I began to imagine, I'm kind of an imaginary person, I began to imagine at that point in life what it would look like to have a healthcare system in a world that proclaimed to our young girls at a young age that there's nothing wrong with your body. It does not need to be altered, suppressed, or destroyed because your cycles are a little irregular right now. Guess what? For a 12 or 13-year-old girl to have irregular cycles is completely normal. That's completely normal. A lot of people don't know that. So instead of telling them right up front, there's something wrong, let's suppress it, alter it, change it, let's tell them, it's okay, you are good, there's nothing wrong with the way you were created. We're going to learn about your body, work with it. We're going to instill confidence in you so that when the time comes for you to begin making decisions about family planning, they're not made from a place of fear, that they're made from a place of empowerment and a place of education and a place of feeling capable. When we look at, the issues facing women and pregnancy in our country, first of all, we have to acknowledge we do not have great maternal and infant mortality rates in our country. Even as a developed nation with state-of-the-art healthcare, our women are falling through the cracks. And I think a lot of this in large part is because of the fear of a very natural and beautiful process. And because there is that fear, we have alternative worldviews that begin to gain traction and power. Women's healthcare currently in many areas of our country, and I would say the majority of how we define women's rights, women's healthcare, is based on fear. It's based on a fear of lack of control of women's bodies. And so we alter, suppress, destroy, control every aspect of what our body should do because it makes us feel somehow better. But ultimately what it's doing to women, if you stop and talk to the moms, if you listen to them, you're going to see they don't feel better. They feel anxious. They feel unsure. They feel isolated, alone, stupid, And I know this because after I left campus ministry, I went back to school and I got a degree. I did my master's degree in health and wellness with a specialty in lactation consulting. And so I became a board certified lactation consultant because as I was imagining this world of what it would look like if every little girl knew that her body was good, I was imagining that I could be helpful in this world by, assisting them with learning about breastfeeding. And as I did my coursework and studied the history of women's healthcare, my heart began to break as I saw how deep this wound really is for women. We can look back over 100 years and we can see that even though the women's rights movement has grown in some ways and we've gained some powers and some rights, we've lost touch with our bodies completely. It's sad, but I would say that is exactly the reality. We can look at the history of birth from being something that was attended by the neighbor ladies and your sister and your mom, and everybody was part of the process with you, and you were really buoyed with your friends being there, caring for you, to that having much less of a sisterhood feel to it. And in the days of COVID right now, I know that many women are really suffering with delivering in isolation alone, even sometimes from their spouse. And so that is one area that has been really difficult, I think, on women psychologically. If we consider the question or the instances we've mentioned earlier about fertility with little girls, just the complete lack of understanding. And we've held this up as a right. We've convinced our daughters that it's their right to not know how their body is working. It's their right to shut down a perfectly healthy, functioning part of their body and call that feminism. And I consider myself a feminist. I don't know, maybe some wouldn't consider me a feminist, but I would say that I'm a feminist in that I love how women were naturally created. I think that how we were naturally created is the perfect, beautiful complement to how men were created. So I guess I'm kind of a masculinist as well. I'm a feminist and a masculinist, but I'm really a complementarianist. And the two work together so beautifully when they're left unaltered and whole and natural. So that's kind of a tangent, but anyways, I just want to say that the feminist movement in general has convinced women that our right to subjugate our bodies, to end our healthy pregnancies, to forego family life, to forego things that could bring us great fulfillment, that not only is that our right, it's almost our duty and our responsibility if we're going to ever reach true equality with men. And I just think that is such a broken, ridiculous idea. Because if it requires us to take all the natural parts of us and destroy them to make us equal with men, we've taken so much of ourselves away. We've not asked that men instead accommodate us the way that we naturally are. Instead of elevating society to meet our needs as women and as mothers, we've lowered ourselves to the lowest level that society could expect from us. We've taken away all of our feminine elements and said, that's good enough. Well, that's not good enough for me, and that's not good enough for my daughters. And I want to see a worldview and a culture where every woman is embraced and accepted as she naturally was created. Nature has order. It makes sense. It's beautiful. You plant the seed in the spring, you harvest it in the fall. It makes sense. When we begin to rail against the laws of nature, when we begin to say that our physical bodies, that the way we were created are inconsequential, when we begin to say that it's no big deal, I feel like this is not the body I belong in. I feel like this doesn't matter. It does matter. The world needs this balance of man and woman. It needs the contribution that women bring so uniquely to the world. It needs our motherhood in a sense. And motherhood is not just physical motherhood. Mary said a little earlier, she shared that I have 7 children. And I can be the first to tell you that I never intended to have 7 children. Actually, I didn't even think about it. I never really intended anything because I think I had kind of bought into the lie, maybe a little bit, that culture had been feeding me, that if you are going to be successful in any way, if you are going to use your brain or your education, then you had to do X, Y, and Z. And children were not X, Y, or Z. I don't even know what children are on that list. They're not on the list. But I'm really grateful that we practiced openness to children in our marriage, and that we were blessed with children in our marriage, because that's what taught me the reality of my physical body, teaching me some deep spiritual truths. I had never realized that the way that my body was built as a woman, just by looking at my body, just by looking at any woman's beautiful body, we can see that she contributes unique spiritual gifts to the life of society. Her body physically welcomes and envelops another. It nourishes and grows and protects a unique little human being. And then after all of that, after safely delivering it, it can continue to nourish and care for this little person for another year. It's unbelievable. But beside from just those physical things that it can do, if we take those into the spiritual realm, women are called to welcome and envelop and mother and nurture all those around us. We're called to keep them safe and treat them with hospitality and love them and see them uniquely as they are, to feed them, literally, sometimes feed them. I feed half the neighborhood children some days. And I do that not because I'm their physical mother, but because I am called as a woman to be a spiritual mother. And so even if a woman is not called to physically bear children, the world desperately needs her to recognize that she is still called to a type of motherhood that creates a welcoming and a dignity for everybody around her. John Paul II, I'm a big fan. I really, really like him. And I actually think that he's the reason I have 7 children. A lot of people might not agree with me, but back in 2004, my husband and I were newlyweds, and we traveled to Rome to have our marriage blessed. And this was still before I really understood the significance of motherhood, all that stuff, you know. And I was barely pregnant with our first son. You go to Rome within about 4 to 5 months of your wedding, and you get your marriage blessed if you're really lucky. And so my husband and I were able to do that. We had the special papal blessing on our marriage, and you get about 30 seconds with the Holy Father. That's maybe a minute. I don't know. It feels like about 30 seconds. And you get a chance to basically ask him or say 1 or 2 things to him, and then he blesses you. And so I was feeling terrible. I felt morning sick. It was just kind of a rough morning. The picture's great. I look pretty dogged, but I looked at John Paul II and I said, "Will you please pray for my baby?" And he nodded and he laid his hands on me, and then he said a prayer. I think it was in Italian. It might have been Polish. I don't even remember. I don't know what he said. And so we left and we came home, and in the next 5 years then we proceeded to have 4 babies. So the first 5 years of our marriage were pretty blessed and amazing. About 5-6 years after that blessing, my husband and I were laying in bed on the anniversary of that blessing, and we were thinking about it. We were like, wow, isn't that amazing? That's kind of a dream. I can't believe we got to meet the Pope. And he had passed away at that point. We're like, wow, you know, he's probably in heaven. You know, that's cool. That's really, and we were thinking about it. And my husband, all of a sudden, he just sat up and he looked at me and he said, "Do you think he misheard you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "What did you say to him?" And I said, "I asked him to pray for our baby." He said, "Do you think he heard you say, 'Please pray for babies'?" I just looked at him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're probably right." And so then we're like, "John Paul II, if you can hear us, you could stop praying for babies." And so the first 4 came in 5 years, and then the next 3 were spread out over the next 10 years. So things did slow down significantly after that. But we love them all and we accept them all anyhow. But I think he had something to do with that, because I think John Paul II, what he spoke about was this culture of life. And as he talked about the culture of life, in one of his famous documents, Evangelium Vitae in 1995, he specifically spoke to the women of the church. And he asked the women of the church to rise up and to embrace a new feminism. The phrase he used was new feminism in quotes, air quotes. And he said, the church needs your feminine motherhood in order to truly combat a culture of death. And I read that statement roughly around 2006 or 7, and it sparked something in me, and I understood immediately what he was saying. He was saying that our culture has lost the feminine touch. It has lost femininity. It has lost an understanding of the importance of the female contribution. And I think it started when we lost touch with respect for our bodies, when we lost touch for an understanding of our contributions as women, as mothers. And I think it is up to the women of the church and women, any woman of goodwill who wants to see a kinder, a gentler, a more peaceful society can be part of this, should join us and help recognize that when women are whole and we are no longer suppressing and altering and destroying ourselves to fit some sort of cultural expectation of what we should be, when we allow women to be the way we were created and we ask men to partner with us in respect for that, we begin to see a whole cultural shift happening. We no longer are able to use one another as items and as objects of satisfaction. We now have to respect one another in our joint shared fertility and recognize that there are natural consequences to our actions. You plant the seed in the spring, you harvest in the fall. When we can help our world to recognize and understand that there are natural laws, natural order to everything around us, it brings great joy, it brings great fulfillment. There's no longer so much fear surrounding things like pregnancy. So that's the worldview of Guiding Star. That's kind of a lot of it. How much time do I have left here? I gotta peek at I don't even know how long I've been talking, guys. I'll just keep talking for a little bit longer because what I think you guys are doing here in Marshalltown, what is happening in this little office here, I don't even know how many square feet this is, but 1,000 square feet, whatever, what's happening in this 1,000 square feet is that you guys are lighting like a beacon. You are a place that is now presenting an alternative worldview. Because the worldview, let's not make any mistakes about it. The fact that Cuties is on Netflix is absolutely a prime example of how far our culture has fallen into the sexualization of our young women and telling them exactly what they are good for. They're told that they get their power through using their bodies in a manipulative way to manipulate men. There's no partnership there. There's no respect. There's no love from women towards men. And absolutely the way that the men are treating these women's bodies, there's absolutely no respect or reciprocation or love in the other direction either. So we know that the fact that that is on Netflix and that Netflix hasn't, that the president hasn't been arrested of Netflix, really, honestly, if you think about that, ponder that for a second, that no one's been arrested. There should have been some arrests happening here at some point, but it hasn't happened because that's normal. So Guiding Star, what we're doing and what you are going to be seeing here in your local community, these trailblazers, these brave people that want to bring this truth and this goodness to the world through women's health care, through the delivery of women's health care and the affirming of women's bodies. They're going to be focusing on 4 core service areas, like every one of our Guiding Star centers do. And it starts with fertility, because we understand how early our girls are being attacked with this worldview. It's so young, guys. It is so young. I just saw a report the other day that said the average age of the first viewing of pornography went down from 11 years old to 8 years old. And fertility and pornography are directly linked because a pornographic culture is a culture of use. It is a culture of easy access, immediate gratification and pleasure. And those are not principles that fit and match with respecting a woman's natural cyclical fertility. They don't match. To portray women in this way and to say that they are always available for sexual gratification is not fair to women, and it is not a true representation of how our bodies are naturally wired. And so we need to start with fertility awareness for our young girls, very young. 8, 9, 10 years old. You'll see the cycle show is happening here, workshops for young girls, and it will go up through, all the way through the fertile years. Any woman needing help to understand her cycles and her fertility can find help here. And then it goes into childbirth services, so childbirth education classes, that we can help to remove some of that fear and the unknown. Fear often comes from the unknown. When you don't understand, you're nervous, you're anxious. So if we can demystify the process and show the true beauty of it, that's going to be a great gift to your community here. And then breastfeeding, which is one of my favorites as a lactation consultant. And I'm going to tell you, for those of you that are concerned about the cultural impact of breastfeeding. Maybe you don't even understand, it doesn't seem to link. It absolutely fits. I can tell you the number of women that I have worked with in the immediate postpartum period that have said things to me such as, if I ever get pregnant again, I'm going to have an abortion. Because they were so traumatized by their birth experience and how breastfeeding is going, it has gone so poorly for them that they would rather never do it again. We have to care for the women all the way through, that they have a positive birth experience and a positive introduction to motherhood and support through motherhood as she needs it. So as a lactation consultant, I can assure you that I have had many conversations that have moved a woman towards a more life-affirming view of herself and her family, just by supporting her in breastfeeding and just by telling her, your body's good. It's good. You can do this. This is good. And then finally, the last core service that is offered at every Guiding Star Center are family support services. And one of the main requirements of that is that you have a child watch in-house. And I love the child watch here at Marshalltown. It's actually one of my favorites that I've seen. You guys have a cute little partition for the little ones to run around in there. And the reason that we are so passionate about having a child watch at every center is because when we look at statistics, we know that motherhood is overwhelming. For a lot of women, we don't have the support networks that are needed in terms of mothers, sisters, family members nearby to help watch our children. And so it actually becomes a barrier for women to welcome new life. 61% of women in our country right now who are choosing to end pregnancies and have abortions already have children. They're mothers. And so something about raising their children is so overwhelming that they just don't want to do it again. And I can personally attest that when I was pregnant with baby number 4 in under 5 years, it was actually embarrassing for me to go to the doctor's office because occasionally I had to haul the other 3 with me. You know, one's in a car seat, one's toddling around, and the other is grumpy because he's 4. And the comments that I would get from nurses and from doctors were just completely demoralizing. And they would make comments like, you shouldn't be having another one, basically, if you don't have anyone to help you with these. And I just remember thinking, why can't there just be a child watch here? Why can't somebody just watch my kids so that I can go into the exam room and put my feet in the stirrups without them sitting in here? Because that's what happens, guys. You have to take them with you when you're a mom. Motherhood is hard. And so we want to make it as easy as we can for any mom in this community that is feeling overwhelmed. We want her to know that she's welcome to bring her children in here for up to 2 hours each day. I think that's what we do in most of our centers. It's free. Just drop them off. If you stay in the building, if you need to take a nap on the couch, I'm sure that can be arranged. Or if you're taking a class here, know that your children are always welcome because we want you to be uplifted and affirmed in your motherhood, and we want your children to be welcome because that's the worldview we're creating. We're creating a world where children are not seen as burdens, where children are seen as the great heritage and blessing that they truly are. Children are a great gift to us. So that's what you guys are getting in your community, and it's needed. It's needed everywhere. The assault is real. We know that it's out there. We know that women need to hear an alternative message just about their goodness and their beauty. And so I'm going to ask that you guys stick around for a little bit longer here as a few other people come up and just make their need known to you. Because even though they have been able to do this all and get it started on very little resources, I absolutely think it must be, I don't know how you're doing this. I'm not sure it's the elves or the angels or somebody is helping here because a lot has happened with very little, which gives me great confidence that any support that anybody gives to this organization is going to be used so wisely because I've seen so much happen on so little that I can't even imagine what's going to happen when they receive the abundance that they deserve to receive here. So please stick around and please really take a few moments to prayerfully envision the world that you want for your daughters and your granddaughters and your sisters and all the women around you, and recognize that the world that's being fed to them through their phones, through social media, through Netflix, is telling them that their bodies are inconsequential, they're not important, we can alter, suppress, and destroy every single beautiful, unique thing that your body does because it doesn't matter. There's nothing special about being a woman. The world is telling that to your daughters. You need a place in your community that's going to tell them the truth, that they are good and that they are beautiful and that they are worthy of respect and care. thank you guys so much for your time tonight. I'm turning it over.
Thank you, Leah. Wow, what a what a wonderful talk. We are so blessed, and thank you, Mary. We are very grateful to both of you for your passion and your leadership here at Guiding Star. My name is Linda Jacobs. I'm a wife, a mother also of 7, but including one that is in heaven, a registered nurse, and a fertility care practitioner. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Many of you have given of your time, talent, and treasure to move this center from a dream to a reality. I am humbled by the kindness and generosity that exists in this community and feel a deep sense of responsibility to continue to earn the respect and support of those who value our mission. Tonight, I'd like to speak about our hopes for the future of Guiding Star Marshalltown. But before I do that, I want to share with you how much we have accomplished so far. Each of the founding board members have worked diligently to open Guiding Star Marshalltown and have a passionate interest in the services provided. At this time, our staff is completely volunteer. We began by taking baby steps, pun intended, and offering services according to the bronze level of operation. This means that we provide education and resources in the 4 core areas of service that Leah just spoke about. Our partnerships include master's prepared educators and professional as well as peer counselors. We also provide free pregnancy testing along with a packet of resources. Our volunteers devote 2 hours out of their day to be here during business hours to answer the phone, help with paperwork, and someday to help in our child watch area. We are blessed with a list of ladies who are waiting to receive the training to serve as volunteers. As I mentioned and Leah mentioned, there are 4 core areas of service. So the first is natural fertility and family planning. I will be providing both virtual and in-person fertility awareness education by teaching the Creighton Model Fertility Care System and the Cycle Show Workshop for Girls. The heartbreak of infertility and miscarriage has touched so many lives, just as it has my own. And so it has been my honor and privilege to work with women and couples to help them recognize the biomarkers of their fertility. Donna Heil will provide virtual information sessions on the negative effects of various forms of contraception. She is also available as a referral resource for professional counseling. In the second core service area, pregnancy and childbirth, we have Dawn Bolivar, who is a certified and experienced doula. She will share her knowledge of labor and delivery in a class for expectant parents. Holly Urbis and Jenny Butler will work together to lead a virtual support group for women who are mourning the loss of a child by stillbirth or miscarriage. Carrie Lippincott will share her resources and compassion to help those who seek healing after abortion. In the third core service area of breastfeeding and postpartum, we have Karen Music. She's an experienced mother as well as a school counselor. She will lead a class to help new mothers deal with postpartum emotions and the concerns of motherhood. Angela Sweeter is a registered nurse and international board-certified lactation consultant who will hold breastfeeding clinics and mom-baby classes. Tony Wanell is a retired pediatric nurse practitioner and will be here every Tuesday to assist new moms with baby weight checks and helpful advice. And in the fourth core area of service, family life, we have Amy Snyder, who will capture special moments by providing pregnancy, infant, and family photography. Donna Edelman is a master's prepared early childhood development specialist and will offer a series of classes on topics such as sleep, play, eating, and education. You can see our full list of classes and support groups by clicking on the Events tab at the top of your screen. And also be watching for a special event that's going to occur in October. Our hope for the future is to move to the next level of operation and be able to acquire a machine to offer ultrasounds to pregnant women. These ultrasounds would allow a woman to view the new life within her and witness a beating heart. She would have immediate access to information, support, and resources to help her plan her journey through pregnancy and motherhood. We dream of the day when we can provide full services to pregnant women by partnering with a physician who is fully aligned with the Guiding Star mission. As our funding grows, we will continue to assess the needs of the community and add additional classes and resources. Some topics for future classes include nutrition during pregnancy, mother and daughter fertility appreciation, the devastating effects of pornography, as Leah spoke about, and Fatherhood 101. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentations tonight, and I thank you in advance for your donation, your kind words of encouragement, and your prayers. Have a great evening.
Good evening. My name is Julie Miller. I'm one of the founding board members for Guiding Star Marshalltown. It's coming up on 2 years, as you've heard, that we got started on this vision and dream to bring holistic health care to Marshalltown and the surrounding communities. Due to situations in my own reproductive past that had much heartache and sadness and pain connected with them, I realized I could have used a loving support group like Guiding Star. Guiding Star is a vehicle to support, educate, and empower women to embrace how amazing they are and understand their bodies and the gifts that God gave each and every woman in procreation. In this understanding, we see the feminine body as beautiful, powerful, and sacred. I'm passionate about these principles. Every person entering Guiding Star will be treated with love, dignity, and respect. I wanted to share with you this evening how I choose to give to Guiding Star Marshalltown. I, of course, chose to give up some time to this project, and talent, some would say, with decorating, and help the wonderful people involved. I also, along with my husband Jeff, give a monthly financial donation to Guiding Star that's taken directly from our bank account. We like the monthly donation and that it becomes part of our tithing budget to help others. We have a few charitable things taken out this way monthly. I find it really helps Jeff and I budget, but also the organization that's on the receiving end as well. They know what they can count on. All monies for Guiding Star Marshalltown stay right here. It's comforting to know my giving becomes that helping hand to lift others up right here in my own community. If you also would like to financially support and help others in our community in this way, please go to our website, Guiding Star Marshalltown, and there you will find how easy it is to commit to this in a monthly fashion. Just tap on the donate button on the top right and you'll be taken to our secure stewardship program. It's that simple. We have big dreams for this small community. Thank you for tuning in tonight and learning more about Guiding Star.
Hello, I'm Mark Mock. I'm the board chair of Guiding Star Marshalltown. I want to thank you for watching our event this evening. The journey to establish a Marshalltown Guiding Star Center started over 2 years ago. It was my wife Mary, myself, and Leah Jacobson. We were drawn into the Guiding Star through another Guiding Star in Cedar Valley, located in Waterloo. And through that experience, we gradually found ourselves being drawn toward establishing a Guiding Star here in Marshalltown. The starting of Guiding Star Center is not anything that I ever figured that I would do with my life. I mean, I'm in retirement, but I don't feel retired now. So, and without question, it was the Holy Spirit that drew us in to doing this. and I have no regrets and no complaints. The Guiding Star Healthcare Centers do not just provide men and women with guidance to live a more natural life, one that is aligned with the way that we are created, but it also helps develop a culture of life, as Leah earlier talked about. We do this by focusing first on women's fertility and developing young families, but here in Guiding Star Marshalltown, we also do this through many other methods. As Linda had indicated, we're here for women unsure about their pregnancy. We're here for women who may decide to seek an adoption for their unborn child. We're here to support those who have lost a preborn or a young infant. We're here for those who suffer from the loss of a child through abortion. We're also here for men. Yes, men are important. Women do not have fertility without men, and don't forget that. Women are often the focus, but as men, we too must understand fertility and respect it. That's very important. In our society, that seems to have been lost by many. I myself have been through 4 births, and each was a different experience. To help with that unknown, Guiding Star Marshalltown is here to help both men and women understand what to expect as a woman goes through a pregnancy and how to help them with this. For doing breastfeeding in early childhood, all 4 of my children were also breastfed. There are things that are very beneficial to your wife in doing this process. Everything from changing diapers, from bringing the child in for breastfeeding when the time is appropriate. I myself thought, oh, she's breastfeeding, I've got it easy. Well, no, your wife will need help for that too. Guiding Star Marshalltown has helped with all of this and more. But for all this to happen, we do need your help in 2 different ways at this point in time. Donations through either a one-time or a monthly gift are greatly appreciated. We have sent many of you a pledge card, and this would be a great way to send us a donation. Just fill out the card and send it back. We can either enter in for you a monthly donation or a one-time donation. If you do not have a pledge card, you may go to our website, press the donate button, as was stated by Julie earlier, and there you can enter in a donation there. Or you can also go to the website, send a contribution to us by mail at the address that is found there. And Guiding Star Marshalltown is a 501c3, so your donations are tax deductible. We also need everyone to spread the word. This is very important. Please tell everyone about us. Direct them to our website, direct them to our YouTube channel, Guiding Star Marshalltown. Provide them with our phone number so they can call us, or with our address so they come to our office if they are in need of any kind of assistance and help with a pregnancy, breastfeeding, whatever it might be. Well, now the evening has come to a close. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. We're now going to close this broadcast, and I do want to thank you all for watching and for your prayers. Have a great evening.